My friends, let's talk honestly for a moment. We've all been there, walking away after a breakup, holding our breath, thinking that silence will scream louder than words ever could. You tell yourself, they'll notice when I'm gone, they'll miss me. But as the days turn into weeks, that silence you once thought was your strength starts to feel like a storm that no one else can hear. It's quiet, yet it shakes you from the inside. You keep checking your phone, expecting a message that never comes. You start wondering, are they really that fine without me? Did I mean that little? Folks, this is where the mind begins to play its cruel tricks. You think you're in control by staying silent, but slowly that silence starts to control you. It's funny how silence at first feels powerful, like you're holding the sword of patience, but if you grip it too long, it cuts you too. You see, silence is not just absence of sound, it's a mirror. And when you stare into it long enough, it shows you the truth. You start seeing who you were in that relationship, how much you gave, how much you tolerated, and how much you forgot yourself while trying to be seen. That realization hurts, my friends, but it's also the first light of clarity, because silence doesn't punish them. It teaches you. It strips away illusion. It breaks the fantasy that they'll suddenly wake up and realize your worth out of nowhere. The truth is, people only realize what you meant when you realize it first. Let me tell you something powerful. Silence is not a weapon, it's a test. It doesn't test their loyalty, it tests your peace. Can you sit with the noise in your own head without reaching for them? Can you hold your ground without needing their attention to feel valuable? Because the moment you can, that's when you've truly won. A man once said, "He who conquers himself is mightier than he who conquers a city." That's Stoicism, my friends. It's not about acting like you don't care. It's about understanding why you don't need to anymore. Think of silence like a mountain. Still, unbothered, unmoved. The storm can rage, but the mountain remains. That's who you must become after heartbreak. They may expect you to crumble, to reach out, to prove your pain. But when you remain calm, centered, and quiet, not as a game, but as growth, you confuse them. You take away their power to define your worth. Every day you don't reach out, you're telling the world, I've chosen peace over chaos. I've chosen to rise, because silence doesn't mean you don't feel. It means you refuse to react. Remember, folks, your silence is not emptiness. It's rebuilding. It's the quiet work of your soul getting stronger. While they're busy wondering why you're not chasing, you're busy becoming someone who doesn't need to. They will feel your absence. Maybe not today, maybe not tomorrow. But when they realize no one else gives them the calm, the care, or the connection you did, your silence will echo in their thoughts louder than any words you could ever say. So hold your silence not like a shield, but like wisdom. Don't use it to make them miss you. Use it to make you remember you, because the person you're meant to become doesn't beg to be noticed. They walk in peace, and peace always attracts what's real. Take a breath, my friends. Slow down for a second. Feel this moment, the quiet, the stillness, the space between who you were and who you're becoming. That's not emptiness you feel. That's power returning home. You've been through enough noise, enough chasing, enough proving. Now, it's your turn to breathe, to rebuild, to rise. So listen. Stay calm, stay grounded, and stay unshakable. Don't let your silence feel like defeat. Let it feel like discipline. Let it feel like you're finally taking your energy back. If these words hit something inside you, if they made you stop scrolling for just a second, I want you to write this in the comments right now. I choose peace. Not because I said so, but because you're ready. You're ready to stop bleeding for people who never noticed your cuts. You're ready to stop proving your worth to those who were blind to it. I choose peace, isn't just a sentence. It's a decision. It's your first act of self-respect. Type it out. Claim it. Let the world see that your silence isn't surrender. It's evolution. And if you felt this message, even for a heartbeat, don't just fade away. Hit that like button, subscribe, and stay with me. Because this journey we're walking isn't about getting someone back. It's about getting yourself back. And I promise you, my friends, this is only the beginning. Number 1. The story begins when you thought silence would make them miss you. You thought silence would make them miss you, didn't you, my friends? You told yourself, I won't text first. I won't chase. I'll let them wonder. You believed that the absence of your voice would echo louder than anything you could ever say. You thought that if you pulled away, they would finally realize what they lost. It's a comforting thought, almost poetic. But here's the hard truth. Silence doesn't feel the same on both sides. What feels like self-control to you might feel like freedom to them. At least at first. You sit there, feeling the pull in your chest, replaying moments, fighting the urge to reach out. They, on the other hand, are testing the waters, testing how much attention they still command. It's a cruel imbalance of emotion. You wait in quiet pain. They wait in curiosity. But this story doesn't end there, because silence, when truly understood, always changes direction. In the beginning, silence feels like standing in front of a locked door, hoping the person on the other side will notice you've stopped knocking. You hope they'll open it on their own. You imagine them scrolling through your profile, seeing you not post, not react, not move. And you think, that'll make them wonder. And you're right, it does. That confusion, that uncertainty, it's the first small crack in their control. Because people are addicted to your attention more than your presence. When you stop feeding that attention, something in them starts to twitch. They may act fine. They may post pictures, laugh louder, pretend they're living their best life. But behind those posts, behind the laughter, there's a question crawling in their mind. Why are they not chasing me anymore? Still, I know what you're thinking. If they cared, why don't they reach out? Why does it feel like I'm the only one hurting? Because, my friends, people don't realize what they feel until their comfort is gone. Carl Jung once said, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. And that's exactly what happens after silence. Your absence starts working in their subconscious. It's not instant, it's slow, like water wearing down stone. They might not miss you today, but one day, when they're alone, when no one else gives them the same energy you did, your memory will appear like an old song they didn't know they missed. Silence plants a seed, and that seed takes time to grow. But that time, my friends, that's where the battle truly begins. Not with them, but with yourself. Because in the quiet, your mind will whisper, maybe I should just text once. Maybe they forgot. Maybe they don't even care. You'll scroll past their stories, hoping to catch some sign that they're thinking of you. Maybe a sad quote, maybe a song that sounds familiar. But you won't see it. And that's when silence starts to hurt. That's when you start to question if you made a mistake. This is the point where most people break, not because they're weak, but because silence is not easy. It's the hardest discipline you'll ever learn. It's not about ignoring someone else. It's about not abandoning yourself. You see, silence is not just what you give, it's what you endure. It's sitting with the discomfort of not knowing, of not being validated, of not being chosen, and choosing yourself anyway. That's where real strength lives. The Stoics understood this. They believed that emotions are natural, but reactions are choices. You can't stop yourself from missing someone, but you can choose what you do with that feeling. You can feed it, or you can transform it. You can chase their approval, or you can build your peace. And peace, my friends, always outlasts attraction. Think of silence like standing in front of a mirror that doesn't reflect what's outside, but what's inside you. At first you'll see longing, pain, maybe even fear, but if you keep standing there, calm, patient, steady, that reflection changes. Slowly, you start to see dignity. You see strength. You see someone who no longer needs to prove their worth through another person's reaction. You begin to remember what life felt like before them, before you tied your value to how much they noticed you. That's not losing, that's awakening. And here's the twist. The moment you start finding peace in your silence, that's when they start to feel it. Energy is felt, even from afar. When you stop trying to pull them back, the invisible rope of attachment starts tugging them. They begin to feel your absence like a missing rhythm in their day. They start to wonder if someone else has your attention now. They replay the moments where you gave too much and they gave too little. They'll check your profile again, not to see your pain, but to make sure your peace doesn't include someone else. That confusion they feel, that's the consequence of underestimating your worth. But you must stay still. You must not break the silence just because it's heavy. Diamonds form under pressure, not comfort. And right now, that pressure you feel is shaping you into someone untouchable. Every day you resist the urge to reach out, you grow sharper, calmer, wiser, and soon you'll realize something beautiful. You no longer want them back. You just want yourself back. That's when you win. That's when silence stops being your prison and becomes your power. So, if you're listening to this and you feel that ache, if you're sitting in that quiet hoping for a sign, let this be it. Your silence is not being ignored. It's being noticed, slowly, subtly, deeply. But the point isn't to make them miss you. It's to make you meet yourself again. Because the person you are becoming through this stillness is someone stronger than the one who begged to be seen. You are learning control. You are learning peace. And peace, my friends, is the loudest answer you can ever give. Now, I want you to take a breath. Feel that quiet strength inside you. And if this message reached something real in your heart, go to the comments right now and write, "My silence has power." Write it, own it. Let the world see that your calm isn't weakness, it's mastery. Number 2, the psychology of absence. Why they start to notice your silence. My friends, here's where the quiet starts doing its real work, not in your world, but in theirs. See, silence is not just a lack of noise, it's a psychological event. When someone who once gave them attention suddenly disappears, the human mind goes into overdrive trying to fill in the blanks. We, as people, hate uncertainty more than pain itself. It's like standing in a dark room where the walls could be anywhere. Your mind starts building the walls itself, and that's exactly what happens when you go silent after giving them your heart. Their imagination becomes their punishment. They start asking questions they never cared to ask before. Are you really over me? Have you found someone else? Were you pretending this whole time? These questions, my friends, are not born out of love. Not yet. They're born out of ego, the same ego that once ignored your worth. At first, they try to brush it off. They tell themselves they don't care. They'll even convince others that they were the one who let go. But at night, when their phone is quiet and no one is feeding their need for attention, the silence starts crawling under their skin. They start missing the energy you once gave. Not because they suddenly realized you were the one, but because they can't stand the void. Carl Jung said, "Until you make the darkness conscious, it will rule your life." Your absence becomes that darkness, something they can't explain, something that forces them to face their own emptiness. And here's where the irony unfolds. The very silence they thought was your weakness becomes the mirror of their own shallowness. You see, people like control. They love knowing that they could have you if they wanted, but your silence takes that control away. You stop being predictable, you stop being available. That's when curiosity slowly turns into anxiety. They check your profile, not to see if you're sad, but to see if you've moved on. They analyze every post, every caption, every song you share. The same people who once overlooked you now start overthinking you. That's the power of absence. When you're not there to explain yourself, they're forced to explain you to themselves, and they never get it right. But don't be fooled, my friends, because this part of the story isn't easy. Your mind will tempt you with illusions. If I post this, they'll see it. If I text them first, maybe they'll finally open up. But that's not peace talking. That's your old habit begging for a fix. You must understand something deep. Silence isn't revenge, it's revelation. It shows you who truly cared, and who only cared when you were available. Because the truth is, if your absence hurts them, it's not your responsibility to soothe them. It's theirs to understand why your presence ever mattered in the first place. Over time, their curiosity evolves. It's no longer just about validation, it becomes memory. They start remembering not just your face or your voice, but your consistency, your warmth, your calmness when they were chaos. They start realizing that what they thought was replaceable wasn't. They'll meet others, yes, but they won't feel that same energy, that same peace, because peace is rare, and the more they search for it outside of you, the more your silence starts to haunt them. They'll remember the tone of your voice when you spoke with kindness. They'll remember your patience, your laughter, the way you made them feel safe without even trying. That's when silence turns into a mirror, reflecting everything they lost. And in that reflection, they'll start to feel something unfamiliar, remorse. Not just because they miss you, but because they realize how easy it was to take you for granted. That's the hidden psychology of absence. It exposes truth through imagination. It turns indifference into longing and longing into regret. And while they sink into those thoughts, you rise, calmer, quieter, wiser. So, my friends, if you're sitting in silence right now, wondering if they notice, trust me, they do. Maybe not out loud, maybe not yet, but the storm in their mind has already begun. Your absence is the conversation they can't stop having with themselves, so keep walking in peace. Let time and stillness do the work you no longer need to do. And if this message spoke to you, I want you to go to the comments and write, "My absence speaks volumes." Write it, own it, and remind yourself. You don't need to prove your value anymore. You are the proof. Number 3. The emotional rebound. Their ego versus their heart. My friends, this is the stage where silence starts to collide with pride, where their ego and their heart quietly go to war. See, every person who walks away from something good carries this fantasy that you'll wait forever, that your silence is just a phase, that you'll eventually come running back. They expect your patience to outlast their pride, and in the beginning, their ego feeds off that illusion. They tell themselves they don't miss you, that they're free now, that life feels lighter without you. But here's the truth. That's not peace they're feeling. That's distraction dressed up as freedom, and like every disguise, it doesn't last long. At first, they'll go out more. They'll post photos, flirt, surround themselves with noise, people, attention, laughter. They'll try to convince the world they've moved on, but deep down, they're not escaping you. They're escaping the silence you left behind. They'll flirt not to find love, but to prove they still can. They'll laugh not because they're happy, but because they're scared of feeling what's underneath that quiet regret. You were their comfort zone, and the human ego hates losing comfort more than it hates losing love. That's why they'll keep pretending. But silence, my friends, has patience. It waits for the moment when all the noise dies down. when the parties are over, when their phone stops lighting up. And that's when it happens. That small, sharp pull of memory, the one that comes late at night, uninvited, when everything they ran toward suddenly feels hollow. You see, the ego wants to win, but the heart wants to heal, and healing never happens through denial. They can scroll, they can flirt, they can talk to someone new, but the heart is stubborn. It remembers feelings the mind tries to bury. Carl Jung said, "What you resist not only persists, but grows in size." That's exactly what happens here. The more they resist missing you, the stronger that missing becomes. They'll try to drown you out with distractions, but you'll keep resurfacing. Not because you're haunting them, but because emotions, once real, don't disappear. They wait. Imagine this, my friends, a lake after a storm. The surface looks calm, but underneath, the water is still swirling, heavy with motion. That's what their heart becomes. On the outside, they look fine, but deep inside, they're wrestling with ghosts. Your words, your laughter, the peace you gave. They'll remember how easy it was to talk to you, how natural it felt to be around you. They'll compare that comfort to what they have now. And every comparison will remind them of the truth they didn't want to face. You weren't just someone they dated. You were the calm after their chaos. And silence over time turns that calm into craving. But don't mistake this stage for reconciliation. This isn't love yet. This is awareness. They're only beginning to realize that their ego cost them something irreplaceable. And that's a painful realization, my friends, because ego doesn't like to admit regret. So instead of apologizing, they'll test the waters. Maybe they'll view your story like a post or send a small message just to see if the door's still open. That's not love. That's guilt looking for comfort. That's their ego asking, "Do you still think about me?" And your greatest power here is to stay still, to not feed the ego that once took you for granted, because the moment you react, you confirm their illusion that they still have access to you. Let the silence work. Let it do what no words can. Because as days turn into weeks and weeks into months, their ego begins to shrink while their heart starts to awaken. And when that shift happens, when they finally stop pretending and start feeling, they'll realize the truth, that you weren't replaceable and they were never as indifferent as they tried to be. That's when silence stops being distance and becomes gravity, pulling their heart back toward the space it once felt safe in. So, my friends, if you're in that quiet phase now, wondering if they're thinking of you, wondering if the silence is even working, trust this. It always does, but not on your timeline. Silence doesn't rush. It reveals. The more patient you are, the clearer their confusion becomes. And one day, when their ego grows tired of pretending, their heart will whisper your name again. Not because you chased, but because you didn't. Take a breath, stay calm, and hold your peace. Because right now, the silence you're enduring is reshaping both of you. And if this message reached your heart today, I want you to go to the comments and write, "My silence speaks truth." Say it, own it, and remember, your calm isn't weakness, it's your greatest form of control. Number 4. The moment they realize you're not chasing anymore. My friends, there comes a quiet, powerful moment, one that doesn't arrive with fireworks or drama, but with stillness. It's the day they finally notice that you've stopped chasing. No more views on their stories, no more likes, no more subtle signs that you're still there, waiting. And at first, they don't think much of it. They shrug it off. Maybe you're just busy, they tell themselves. But days pass, and then weeks, and that silence starts to itch under their skin. Something feels off, something they can't quite name. It's not love they feel at first, it's discomfort. Because for the first time, They're not sure they're still important to you. That's the power of detachment. When your energy disappears, their ego loses its food. They were used to being the center of your attention, the sun in your emotional sky. Every time you watched their story, every like, every accidental view was a quiet reminder that they still had you. But now, nothing. Silence. Absence. And that absence becomes louder than any message you could have sent. It begins to whisper to their mind, maybe someone else has their attention now. Maybe someone else gets the care I used to take for granted. See, people rarely panic when they lose love. They panic when they lose control. And that's what your silence represents. Control they no longer have. They start scrolling through your page like an investigator. They notice you look calmer, maybe even happier, and that calmness, that stillness, feels like a threat, because they expected you to fall apart without them. They expected you to wait, to beg, to keep orbiting around them like a lost planet. But when they see you standing still, grounded, peaceful, that's when the panic hits. They realize you've left their emotional field, and that realization burns. They'll start testing the waters. Maybe they'll post something meant for your eyes, a song, a quote, a subtle dig. Maybe they'll show off someone new, hoping it stirs a reaction, but you won't move. You'll keep that quiet power, that stoic calm, and that's what breaks them. Because now the roles are reversed. They're the ones waiting, checking, wondering if you still think about them. They'll catch themselves thinking, why haven't they texted? Did they stop caring? Have I been replaced? And when those questions start, my friends, you've already shifted the balance. That panic turns into nostalgia. Suddenly, their mind starts playing reruns of your kindness. They remember the mornings you checked on them when no one else did, the nights you listened when they had no one else to talk to. They remember the way you smiled, the way you believed in them when they didn't even believe in themselves. And that's when it starts to hurt. Not because they're lonely, but because they realize they lost someone who truly cared. That's the thing about genuine love. You can't unfeel it. You can distract yourself from it, but you can't erase it. And the longer they go without your energy, the more valuable it becomes in their memory. Carl Jung once said, "What you withdraw from withdraws from you." The moment you stop chasing, you also stop giving them the emotional energy that kept their ego alive. That's when guilt slips in. They start feeling bad, not because they suddenly became saints, but because deep down they know they mishandled something real. They realize that while they played games, you were sincere. While they took your patience for granted, you were simply trying to love them right, and that guilt, that quiet sting in the heart, becomes the echo of your silence. But listen to me, my friends. This is not the moment to break your calm. This is the moment to stay still. Because right now, your silence is finally speaking their language, the language of absence. Let them sit with it. Let them face themselves without your comfort to soften the blow, because the moment they feel your peace, they'll understand the chaos they caused. So if you're in that space right now, if you've stopped chasing, stopped watching, stopped reaching, don't look back. You're not being cold, you're being free. You've graduated from needing their attention to creating your own peace, and I promise you, they'll feel that energy even from miles away. Take a deep breath and remind yourself of this truth. The one who no longer chases becomes the one who is chased. You've reclaimed your value without saying a word. And if that resonates with your heart right now, I want you to go to the comments and write, "I no longer chase." Write it proudly. Let it be your affirmation, your declaration of freedom, because your silence isn't distance, it's dignity. Number 5. How silence changes the power dynamic. My friends, silence is not just a pause between words, it's a shift of energy, a transfer of power. You may not notice it happening at first, but with every day that passes without you reaching out, something begins to change in the invisible balance between you and them. What once fed their confidence now feeds their confusion. What once made you anxious now makes them restless. Because silence, real, calm, unbothered silence, transforms both sides of the story. And in that transformation, the power dynamic begins to flip. See, when you were chasing, their ego was in control. Your attention was the air they breathed, the proof they were still desirable, still wanted, still important. They knew that no matter what they did, you would show up, liking their posts, checking their stories, finding small excuses to reach out. But silence starves ego, my friends. When you stop feeding it, it starts to panic. It's like a fire that can't survive without oxygen, and your silence is that suffocating stillness that makes them realize they were never as powerful as they thought. At first, they'll try to ignore it. They'll act unbothered, pretend they've moved on. But deep down, something in them begins to tighten. A quiet awareness that your energy isn't theirs anymore. They'll start remembering things they never valued when they had them, the sound of your laughter, the calm of your voice, the comfort of your presence. They'll scroll back to old messages, reread your words, and feel something they can't quite name. A mix of regret and longing. They'll tell themselves, I just miss the connection, but what they really miss is the feeling of being loved without having to earn it. That's the paradox of silence. When you stop chasing, they start remembering. Not because you disappeared, but because your energy did. Carl Jung once said, everything that irritates us about others can lead us to an understanding of ourselves. And that's what your silence does. It forces them to face themselves. They start realizing how much of their self-worth was tied to being desired, how much of their confidence depended on your attention. Without you, they have to look inward, and that's a mirror most people aren't ready to face. And here's where your transformation truly begins, my friends, because while they're losing control, you're gaining it back. Every day you stay silent, every time you resist the urge to check their page or send that one text, you become stronger. You stop being the person who needs closure and start becoming the person who is the closure. You realize that the peace you were chasing from them was something you could give yourself. That's the quiet power of emotional independence. It doesn't scream. It simply shifts the gravity. The more you grow detached, the more they feel it. It's a strange, magnetic pull that starts to reverse direction. They start to crave the very energy they once took for granted. They'll try to get your attention again, a random message, a subtle post, maybe even pretending they're fine, but deep down, they're no longer sure of their place in your story. That uncertainty, that loss of power, is exactly what makes them start valuing what they lost. Because now, they're the ones who feel left behind. And that's the beautiful twist, my friends. Silence doesn't just create distance, it creates depth. It separates the superficial from the sincere. It forces both of you to see what's real. You begin to understand your worth isn't tied to who notices you. It's tied to how still you can stay when the world tries to shake you. That's what true strength looks like. So if you're in that phase where your silence is starting to make them wonder, keep going. Don't break it. Don't explain it. Let them feel the weight of what they lost and the peace of what you gained. Because one day soon, they'll look back and realize that while they were busy trying to win the game, you quietly outgrew it. Take a deep breath, my friends. This is your power now, quiet, steady, unstoppable. And if you feel that truth inside you tonight, go to the comments and write, "My silence is my power." Write it like a promise to yourself. Because the moment you believe that, no one can take your peace again. 6. The memory effect. Why they can't stop thinking about you. My friends, there's a strange and beautiful thing that happens when you walk away. Something science and soul both agree on. It's called emotional imprinting. Psychologists describe it as the lasting mark one person leaves on another's mind through shared emotion and repeated connection. Simply put, when someone has felt you, truly felt you, their brain doesn't forget. It adapts to your rhythm, your tone, your energy. You become a pattern in their emotional circuitry, and when that pattern is broken, the mind starts searching for it again. That's why even after you've gone quiet, they can't stop thinking about you. At first, they'll tell themselves it's nothing. They'll shrug off those late-night thoughts, those small memories that come out of nowhere. Your laugh, your phrases, your way of caring. But the mind doesn't move on just because the ego says so. Every small moment you shared left a mark. The daily good mornings, the random check-ins, the comfort of knowing you'd be there, all of that built familiarity. And the human brain craves familiarity the way lungs crave air. When it's gone, there's withdrawal. They start feeling that quiet emptiness in the places you used to fill. In their morning scroll, their drive home, those quiet hours before bed. They don't realize it yet, but the silence isn't just absence, it's the echo of you living in their memory. Carl Jung once said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate." And that's exactly what happens here. They don't even realize why they're thinking about you. They might wake up from a dream where you appeared, or find themselves checking your profile without meaning to. It's not logic, it's imprint. You became a part of their psychological landscape. Your name, your energy, your presence. It's stored in their emotional memory, like a song that refuses to fade. They'll try to replace it, but new people can't erase old wiring. They can only distract from it. But here's what makes it even more fascinating. Silence amplifies memory. When you were around, they could take you for granted. They didn't have to miss you because they had you. But once silence steps in, the mind starts idealizing. It starts remembering selectively. Not the arguments or the mistakes, but the warmth, the comfort, the good. That's how nostalgia works. It edits out the pain and replays the peace. Suddenly, you become this almost sacred figure in their thoughts. The calm they didn't appreciate until it vanished. They might try to fight it. They'll dive into distractions, maybe even new relationships, thinking that proximity can replace connection. But every new experience that doesn't feel like you only strengthens your memory. The more they try to run from it, the more it shows up in different forms. A random scent, a familiar song, a phrase you used to say. That's the silent reminder. You're still there, somewhere in their subconscious. They may not admit it, but your presence lingers in the quiet corners of their mind, untouched by time or distance. And while they're wrestling with these thoughts, you, my friends, are becoming lighter. You're detaching, healing, growing. You're not chasing the past anymore. You're building a future. That's the beauty of silence. It lets you rebuild while they replay. You start living in the present while they start living in the past. The roles reverse without you lifting a finger. What once felt like a loss becomes the reason you're gaining your peace. And the same silence that tormented you before now becomes your greatest teacher. Because the truth is, silence didn't erase you, it magnified your presence. It made them see what life feels like without your energy holding it together. And the longer they go without that, the clearer it becomes. You weren't just another person. You were an emotional anchor. You left an imprint not because you were dramatic or loud, but because you were real. Real connection is rare in a world full of temporary attention, and real always leaves a trace. So if you're sitting there wondering, Do they think about me? Yes, they do. Not all day, not every moment, but often enough to know something's missing, something calm, something honest, something you. Take a deep breath, my friends, and let that truth sink in. You don't have to chase what's already echoing in their heart. You don't have to speak when your silence already speaks volumes. And if these words find you tonight, I want you to write in the comments, "I left my imprint." Say it proudly, because your energy, your care, your peace, they mattered. Number 7. When they come back, the shift you didn't expect. My friends, there comes a moment, quiet, almost ordinary, when your phone lights up with a message you weren't expecting but always knew would come. A simple line. "Hey, how have you been?" On the surface, it looks harmless, casual, maybe even friendly, but beneath it, there's a story, a hesitation, a quiet fear behind those words, because that message isn't really about checking on you. It's about testing the waters. It's about wondering, do I still have a place in your life? They'll pretend it's nothing serious, but you'll know better. You'll feel it in your chest, that shift in the energy. This isn't them being kind. This is them being curious, maybe even afraid. This is when you finally see what silence was truly for. It wasn't about making them miss you. It was about creating space for truth to surface, for them to sit with their own mind long enough to realize what they walked away from. See, silence doesn't break people immediately. It reveals them over time. It exposes what was real and what was ego. And by the time they circle back, the game has changed. You're no longer the person who would have replied instantly, heart racing, hoping this time would be different. Now you've evolved. Your calm isn't a performance. It's your natural state. You've become grounded, untouchable, whole. They'll try to sound nonchalant. "Just wanted to check in," or "I saw something that reminded me of you." But every word they type carries weight they won't admit, because silence changes perception, not just yours, but theirs too. They used to see you as the one who'd always be there, but now you're unpredictable, you're peaceful, and peace is unsettling to those who thrive on attention. They don't know how to approach you anymore, so they come gently, carefully, pretending it's nothing serious, when deep down they're hoping your heart still remembers. And here's where the power of your journey reveals itself. When that message comes, you won't feel the same pull you once did. You'll feel something different, clarity. You'll see that your silence didn't punish them, it prepared you, it gave you the strength to respond, or not, from peace, not pain. You'll look at that message and realize that what you were craving wasn't them. It was freedom from needing them. That's what silence gave you. It built a bridge between who you were and who you've become. Carl Jung once said, "What you resist persists." But you didn't resist anymore. You let go. You stopped chasing. You stopped explaining. You let the silence speak for you. And now it's echoing back through their own thoughts. They're not coming back because they suddenly changed. They're coming back because you did. You broke the cycle. You stopped feeding the pattern that once kept you stuck. And now they feel that distance like gravity, pulling them toward you, not because you begged, but because you no longer need them. When they reach out, you'll notice something else too. Their words may sound familiar, but the power behind them isn't. It no longer moves you like it used to. You've reclaimed the very thing you once gave away, your emotional balance. They're still living in yesterday, trying to revive something that silence has already transformed. And in that moment, you'll understand. You never really lost them. You simply outgrew them. The person they're looking for doesn't exist anymore. You became wiser, calmer, quieter. You became the storm they can't predict and the peace they can't find anywhere else. But let me tell you something, my friends. Whether you reply or not isn't the point. The point is that silence has already done its work. It showed them their reflection and showed you your strength. They're reaching out because your absence taught them a truth they couldn't ignore. You were never ordinary. You were the peace they'll keep searching for long after this message fades. So when that message appears, don't rush. Don't let emotion speak for you. Just smile, because the universe just showed you that you didn't lose anything. You were the lesson. You were the imprint. You were the calm they can't recreate. And if you feel that truth resonating with you, I want you to go to the comments and write, "My silence spoke for me." Write it like a victory, because it is one. Number 8. Conclusion: silence doesn't just make them miss you, it makes them remember who you were. My friends, as we come to the end of this journey, take a deep breath and feel where you are right now compared to where you began. Think about it. There was a time when your silence felt like a burden, when every moment of not reaching out felt like holding your breath underwater. You wondered if they'd ever notice. You feared they'd forget. But now you stand in a different place, stronger, calmer, clearer, because silence, when used with wisdom, doesn't break you. It builds you. It doesn't make them forget you. It makes them remember you in ways they never expected. Your silence was never weakness, my friends. It was your graduation. It was you walking out of their chaos and stepping into your own peace. When you stopped explaining yourself, when you stopped begging to be understood, you became mysterious again. Not because you were hiding, but because you stopped performing. And that mystery, that calm confidence, is exactly what they can't stop thinking about now. You see, they're not replaying the version of you who begged for closure. They're remembering the one who loved deeply, who gave freely, who showed up with sincerity, the version they thought would never walk away. Now, every time your name crosses their mind, it stings a little. Not because they hate you, but because they realize how easy it was for them to overlook something real. They remember your laughter when they feel lonely. They remember your patience when they meet someone who argues instead of understands. They remember your calm, your care, your way of making them feel seen. And they realize how rare that was. Silence has that effect. It doesn't just remove you from their world. It makes you larger in their memory. You become the standard, the comparison, the quiet ache they can't name. And that, my friends, is the shift you were waiting for all along. You thought silence would make them miss you, but it did something far deeper. It made them reflect. It made them see the difference between someone who entertained them and someone who understood them. And that's when missing turns into meaning. Because now they don't just miss your presence. They miss the version of themselves that existed when they were loved by you. They miss the peace they felt standing next to your energy. But here's the beauty of it all. That's not your burden to carry anymore. You're not the healer of their regret. You've already healed yourself. While they were busy replaying the past, you were busy rebuilding your future. While they were stuck wondering if you still care, you learned how to care for yourself. That's the power of silence. It doesn't wait for anyone's validation. It creates its own peace. So, if you find yourself wondering whether they'll come back, don't chase that thought. They will, maybe not today, maybe not tomorrow, but they will. Not because you asked them to, but because your silence will keep whispering your name in their mind long after their distractions fade. That's not revenge. That's resonance. It's the universe reminding them that peace like yours doesn't come twice. You've done your part, my friends. You walked away not to hurt them, but to find yourself again. And you did. You turned your silence into strength, your distance into discipline, your pain into peace. You became someone who no longer begs to be seen, because your energy now speaks for itself. And when they remember you, they won't remember someone desperate for attention. They'll remember someone impossible to replace. And that, my friends, brings us to the end of this chapter. Remember, your silence wasn't about losing them. It was about finding yourself. You didn't fall behind. You rose above. So keep walking in peace, keep choosing calm, and let your silence speak the truth they couldn't hear before. If this message touched your heart, share it with someone who needs that reminder today. Don't forget to hit the like button, subscribe for more Stoic wisdom and healing talks, and drop your affirmation below. My silence made me stronger. Stay grounded, stay unshakable, and I'll see you in the next one.